2 rounds in, values are changing, things are starting to shape themselves out in the SuperCoach world. Welcome to the panel, your official NBL SuperCoach show for NBL 25. Great to be with you once again. Things are changing in this landscape and it's a really exciting time. Maybe a time of trepidation for some owners who haven't had things gone their way over the first 2 weeks. My name's Joel Peterson. Our SuperCoach wizard James Clements is here. G'day, James.
Hello, JP. I'll tell you what, this wizard thing is getting a bit weird. I swear it's just because of the beard. Because I'm ready to fire. It's 2 rounds in. I'm ready to fire my team into the sun already. It's all over. Pack her up, boys, I reckon. But this is a week of opportunity. You said trepidation. I say opportunity.
I like that. I like your optimism. It's you, Dumbledore, and Nick Watson, the 3 wizards that matter in anyone's life. And a man who described himself earlier as flying. He can be your hero, baby. Pete Holley. Hello, Halls.
It's good to be here. I've had some of the worst decisions so far in the first 2 weeks of SuperCoach. So you probably do the opposite of what I say. And also some that I predicted I was going to do in the preseason, and I'm sitting here thinking that I have made an absolute fool out of myself. But as you said, I can bounce back in 1 week. Came down to the last game, last round, and everything fell apart.
Well, I feel like we'll get to some of that throughout the course. We might refer back to some of those moves that Pete's made. So we're 2 rounds in. We've had some value changes. We've got teams coming up to double headers. How do you assess things a couple of rounds into the season, JC?
One word is cooked for a lot of my team. But at the same time, I think what we've seen is you just need to be planning ahead. That's all it is, right? Just planning. You need to have a strategy and stick to it. That's what SuperCoach is all about, Halls. It's just about having a strategy, just go, right, these are my guys, and actually doing it, as you've sort of found to your chagrin, I think, where you've not stuck with it.
I think, and the other part is, don't make emotional trades. I've done that already. I made some emotional trades after round 1, and they came back to bite me in round 2. So if you have your faith and you believe in a couple of the key players you've got, ride them through because they'll come good.
Is there an argument to say that you can't get too stuck on your guys, though? Like, if you have guys that you do need to make some rational decisions as well as maybe some of those emotional decisions?
100%. I'm just full-blown rage trade. Every 20 minutes, I'm wearing out my keyboard. It's nah, go on, done. But this is it. Strategy comes into it. The players that you have in doubles this week, I'm not attached to anybody at this point. I'm just right, you're out the door. I love you, Sam Froling, but see you, bye. Pack her up, boys, we're done. And same with DeWalt, it's the same thing. I'm just cool, thanks for a couple of weeks on your bike, son. It's a bit of a tough one, but I'm a pragmatist, if nothing else.
I've probably traded out every single one of my players this week and gone and undone it each time. And then I think I've settled on what I like for this round, but then I'll probably change 10 times again.
The reverse changes button. It is a beautiful thing
beautiful.
In SuperCoach. It is terrific. So, of course, supercoach.com.au, the place to make all your changes, live scores via the NBL app, of course, across the course of the weekends. Let's take a look at our hot and not. So our top performers and the lowest rating performers out of last weekend. Xavier Cooks leads the line, so 77 points he had across the Kings double. Jalen Adams, who was really proficient last week, 75 points. Halls' man Trey Kell was 72. Jack White had 71. As a Jack White owner, I was very nervous early on Thursday night, but he really got cooking. And then Matt Hurt with 65, who's been a pleasant surprise. What catches your eye out of that list, James?
Jack White and his second halves. Just going, hey, Jack White, you might not be the hero we need or deserve, but you're the hero we have right now, right? That was amazing. The second half was just all right, every SuperCoach, don't worry about it, I got this. Puts the team on his back. He goes absolutely hammering songs. I love that. And Xavier Cooks flying the Ballarat flag. Also, MVP flag, whatever you want to say. But, that pure Ballaratness, I love that from him. He was awesome. And I'm one of the big things I want to keep my eye on is this Kings team, obviously. I think we're talking about it all through NBL 25 is how deep that Kings team is. So the combination of Cooks and Oliver and how that sort of balances out is one of the big things I'm basically keeping an eye on. They were both very good this week, which is very handy. But Cooks is just he hasn't missed a beat at all. He's just back in MVP form.
I went before round 1, and I love engaging on Twitter with SuperCoach fans, NBL fans. It's one of my favourite things to do. We're talking about what was going to happen in round 1. And I said Trey Kell's my most underrated SuperCoach signing. And I said, I think it's terrific. He filled it up. He had a triple-double last year. I think he can have a massive season for Illawarra. I didn't listen to myself, and I didn't put him in there. Other people did. They loved it. They agreed. And then I also said I'm not touching any Sydney Kings players because they're too deep and they've got too many weapons. They'll share it around. And we look at what's hot, and all 3 of those are on there, and none of them have been in my team whatsoever. So that's one, listen to me sometimes, don't listen to me all the time.
That last name you've chucked on there as well, JP, of Matt Hurt. He's been fantastic for the Phoenix. The big problem is for SuperCoach is they've had a double. They now, I think, have 3 rounds of just single games. So it's kind of a bit of a shame if you've got him in your team. The move is probably to trade off him. So
So that's our hot. What about our not? So Isaiah Liafa had 3 points and scoring the ball's been an issue for him. James Bateman scoring the ball. There's been plenty of issues with the Brisbane Bullets over the first 2 weeks. He had 6 at 277,000. Mojave King 7, Ethan Almansa 7, and Anthony Drimmick with 8. Bateman's a fascinating one, Pete. He was going to be the head of the snake for this Brisbane team, and it's not working out how they'd like at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not too afraid of if you do have him in your team. I know you can understand jumping off with what's happened in the first 2 rounds, but I think there'll be a conversation between him and the coaches staff this week, understanding that, hey, we need a lot more from you. And not just the pressure of the side of the basketball of, hey, we need to win games and all of that, but, hey, if we want to get back off the bottom, if we want to get wins, we're going to have you lead us. And it's not just scoring, it's assists, it's steals defensively, it's all that which really translates well to SuperCoach. I'd be willing to give him another round. Mind you, they have got a lot of single rounds as well, so I understand that. But I'm expecting the first 2 rounds compared to this week should be night and day with what we get from James Bateman.
Yep. And the one thing that's not on there as well is Counter Pinder. Like, absolute shocking game last week, obviously, because he only played the 10 minutes. -6. Like, that is just a massive, massive, massive price drop coming for him. But that was all situational as well, which is kind of weird. But understandable if you're John Riley, right? You're like, well, this is going to be working. Pinder's not working. Off he goes. And Cotton had a quiet one as well. But, I mean, the Bateman one is just a really, really tricky situation.
Shea Ili was a little bit chocolates to board lollies as well, from a great week 1 performance to not so good in week 2. Our shout out to, so our top performing teams from across the course of the round, we just look at this with envy every single week and think, oh, what could be? So Lizzie's team with 466 points. So these are some of the best performing teams across SuperCoach. So Xavier Cooks as captain had Days, White, Hurt, and Trey Cal, which is a very, very nice mix.
So, JP, the Simpsons meme of Homer looking at the barbecue, and he's like, that's a great looking barbecue. Why doesn't mine look like that? That was my team. Look, like, we posted like the actual graphic of that. You're looking at that team going, how can you do that? Why doesn't mine look like that? It just looks nothing. Anyway, it was an amazing, amazing week for them. Like, they've absolutely smashed the Lizzie's team, and I'm like wildly jealous. Like, basically outpacing me by 100 points. That's just brutal.
It's well put together, though. You look at it, and even it's easy to look in retrospect, being like, oh, yeah, but all of this was on display for all of us in the preseason and after round 1 of what we could see from all of these players. Like, this was not a surprise. This is just well thought through. As you said, planning ahead as well. So big shout out to Lizzie's team.
Yeah, so Guns N' Roses for Shoal before 60 had Jalen Adams captain. Bluth Lodge, I think a sneaky little Arrested Development nod there, which I like for Stephen with 459. So Days vice captain, Adams captain. Hursty's hose for Isaac, Adams and Daly at the guard spot, and Matthew Dellavedova was terrific in the throwdown. And then KFC buckets for Matthew, 4 of 5 on the bench, had at least 29 points.
We forget about that, don't we? At times you're just worried about your starting 5 and you forget that, hey, you still need some strong contributors off the bench.
Yeah, this is when I look at mine and go, all right, thanks a lot, Angus Glover. Thanks a lot, Rocco. You're breaking my heart here. Like, and obviously, like, carrying Henshaw last week hurt me a lot as well with the donut, which is a tough one, and a lot of coaches would have copped that too. But it's one of those things where if you build out your team properly, and if you're making like a trade last week, like you might have, and moved on from Henschel and just like decided to bring him back next week, who knows? You can actually get that massive bench score.
Well, Ben Henschel's going to come up in a second. Our most traded in, our most traded out. So who's moving around in terms of players? And I've got a vested interest in the top 2 on this list. So Will Magnay, Montrez Harrell, 15.6% of trades have got Magnay coming in, 12.5% have got Harrell coming in. So Magnay's 317,400. Montrez Harrell, 270,700. Sam Wardenberg, who was terrific for the Snakes, 225,600. Elijah Pepper, who's been great for Perth, it's 69,000. Jonah Antonio, 5.8% of trades have got him at 76,000. There is a common theme with all of these players, James, and that is that they've all got doubles coming up.
That's exactly right, JP. And I'll tell you what, Wardenberger is like, to, just shout out Hungry Jacks. Like, he was the double whopper last week. It was amazing. Like, it was absolutely crazy. Is he ever going to do it again, though, Hools? Like, this is the big question I've got for Wardenberger. Like, I'm just going to call him the burger. He's like full-blown burger. I love him. And, like, you look at Trez, you look at Will the Thrill. Like, Will the Thrill's got a pretty tough matchup this week. This is a really tricky week for your trades, but you can see why each of those 3 would have come in, right?
You know what? He asked if Sam Wardenberg can do it again. Well, I traded him out right before the round last week, and then he went and had that. So unless I trade him back in, if he stays out, he's probably going to continue to do that because that's the sense I'm getting from my SuperCoach team. When I get rid of players, they're going to thrive.
Can you let us know? Because I might make decisions based on what you do.
Well, I've brought in Montrezl Harrell and Will Magnay.
Okay, well.
So you talking about the two
So
ones?
would I. See you later, boys.
So, but again, he was terrific. The Jonah Antonio most traded in is interesting because Taron Armstrong reportedly being ready to come back. You don't know how much he's going to play. Antonio played 30 minutes in that game. His minutes are going to fluctuate if Taron Armstrong comes back. Jackson McCoy's available too. So they go from having no guard reserves to a lot of guard reserves. That one definitely interests me for sure, but I can understand why people are going with Montrezl Harrell with the talk of potentially him starting as well.
The Jonah Antonio piece been a very nice one as someone who had him at the start of the season. Now, most traded out, so Cam Oliver, who came onto the scene with a bang. So 9.4% of trades have got Cam Oliver going out at 292, 1,000. Lockie Olbrich, my man, 3.3% of trades, 150, 400 with a little bit of a value bump in the last couple of weeks. Ethan Almanza from Perth, 1.6% of trades at that 1,500. Ben Henschel, who didn't play last week, still 69,000 with no price rise. And Bryce Cotton for the Perth Wildcats as well. So again, a theme in the bottom three there that all those Wildcats players are coming up to doubles this week.
It's a weird one. And for the 9.4% of you who have traded out Cam Oliver, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's going to double the week after. You just have to ride him one more week and you're fine. You'll get another price rise, fingers crossed. Then you got to double. Then you should be flying. You should be all right. And even with Olbrich as well, right? This is a weird one. Like, he's still a cash cow. Like, ride him for as long as you can. We've seen, as we hit on last week, like there's a very high floor for those big in Illawarra, like putting up lots of points as well as a team. We've talked about Hawkball plenty over the last week or so. And then like Henschel as well. Like, what are we doing trading him out? Just don't do it. It's very simple. So I think there's a couple of weird ones there. You're like, that's probably not the right move. Cotton with the double this week. He's going to shed a lot of money though, so you can sort of see why he'd move off Bryce. He has a really tough schedule this week as well, Hools. So how do you feel about him going up against they've got Melbourne and Tassie this week? So how do you feel about
He normally rises to those occasions for sure. Like, he loves those big games, those matchups against guys like Shaley and Tasmania are always a tough matchup for him. But he's a victim of his own greatness with the price, right? It's got to be beyond the greatness we see every single week just to get anywhere close to that break-even score. So I can understand that one for sure. The Cam Oliver and Lockie Olbrich one, it shocks me for sure. Lockie Olbrich's almost one for me that I'm just holding on to as long as the season will let me, because he's going to play a whole lot. We know what he's going to do when he gets the opportunity to do that. And then Cam Oliver too. This is a 6 man of the year potential who's going to go out there, play 28 minutes a game. And if he's out there long enough, it's going to be a double-double. It's going to be a lot of points.
Yeah. And if there's any sort of injury woes at any point of the season, they're going to stand to benefit massively. So just having them there, just in case.
You think it's emotional? Some people are emotional there?
Mate, I reckon it's pretty rage trade. Absolutely rage trade.
Earlier in the week, maybe people just come to their senses later in the week. Just on Cotton, so at 232 games Bryce Cotton's played in the NBL. He's had 36 30-point games. He's never had one against Tassie in 11 appearances. He's had at least 3 against every other team. So for whatever that's worth, he's played less against Tassie than any other team, but maybe that matchup isn't exactly, just hasn't favoured him in the past.
So you think that everyone who's traded him out, the 0.9% have just gone into the archives and said, you know what? Hates playing against Tassie. Do not set a challenge to him either, because you have 70 SuperCoach points.
We're calling that game on Sunday. I just want to see Bryce explode. So maybe I'm trying to talk that into existence a little bit.
He could hit his break even at 90 in that one game now. You fired him up, JP. This is all over. Pack her up.
Well, me and Derek Rucker, we've got something in common. Happy birthday, Ruck. The teams that play doubles this week. So Adelaide, Cairns, Tassie, Melbourne and Perth. James, how closely are you looking at this week versus maybe what they've got coming up? So sort of forecasting, yes, they play doubles this week, but then you've got to look ahead to what have they got in the next few weeks as well? I'm
eyes wide open here, JP. I'm just staring them down. I'm just like, come on, man. But mostly it's to do with Cairns and Adelaide. Those are my two that I'm really, really focused on. Why is that? They got to double the week after. This is how it goes, right? We go the week after week 4. You got Cairns and the Sixers again, as well as the Kings. So you've got back-to-back doubles. That means your players have got plenty of time to make lots of money. And this is what we're chasing early on in the season. This is SuperCoach gold. Just back me up with doubles, to the point where you could easily have 5 players starters this week on doubles, week after as well. So that's how focused I am on the Sixers, the Cairns players as well this week. To the point where I'm Montrezl Harrell over Will the Thrill Magnay is probably where I'm at. Kendrick Davis as well is a massive in, I think, for a lot of people this week. And a lot of it's to do with the schedule opportunity. That's what it's all about.
The Montrezl Harrell one for me, you talk about the Thursday night matchup against Southeast Melbourne, who they don't have a backup centre. So when Geordie Hunter goes off and Harrell comes in, whether he starts or not, there's some buzz around that. But he could put up some massive numbers in this Southeast Melbourne game. Then plays the Hawks, where They have a really strong big man department. So you're thinking about one game you can get emotionally invested in. If Montrezl Harrell puts up 50 plus, and then what happens in the Hawks game, you've got to think about that. But matchups is key too. There's those things in the doubles as well.
Let's go to what you got. So, boys, our own teams. James, we'll start with you. What you got?
Well, talk about rage trades. I mean, this is going to just completely change again. But at the moment, still rolling with Jack White, still rolling with Cam Oliver in the front court. Trez comes in as the center. I believe in that, like the ceiling, like the rebounding is there, the scoring is there. And I feel like, the Sixers are 0-2 so far this season. I think they're just going to go, we need to win. And like against the Phoenix, off they go. Should be a massive one. He should have a massive one. Davis as well. I'm rolling the dice at the moment. Rob Edwards. I feel like the shooting is awesome. It was amazing last week. Supercoach relying on that shooting is pretty tough. But at that price point, I feel like he's got another 1 or 2 big games in him. There's probably another big price raise coming for Rob, if he can back it up. So this is like a bit of a fingers crossed, hoping. Olbrich Henschel still in the front court on the bench. Rocco's still there as well as Hickey. And Jonah Antonio comes in for me because I've got to the point where I'm like, I'm happy to boost trade this week. A lot of people aren't. I'm happy to, when it comes to the Supercoach, fixing mistakes. Angus Glover, I love you, my ginger friend. Like, this is brethren right here. This is brother to brother. But Angus Glover, you're breaking my heart. Like, getting the minutes, getting the opportunity. I think we'll see some of his minutes dip a little bit in the next couple of weeks. Antonio, it'll be one of those cans. It might be McCoy, it might be Antonio by the end of the week, but at the moment it's Antonio. I feel okay about this. I like the matchups that I've brought in. I went away from Will of Thrill. I brought in Trez instead, and Edwards was a replacement for DeWalt. So I'll probably change again, but that's where it is at the moment. Pools,
yeah, listening to you, I've just already going to reverse a couple of trades before Thursday night and get it. But I'm going Montrezl Harrell captain. He's my big pick. I'm looking at your Supercoach and see the same little highlight.
You can see the C there.
You see the C on it. I think he's in for a massive weekend, and they need to win and win well. So I think it's going to be a lot that's played through him. And Rob Edwards is an interesting one because in the Blitz had a really nice game in the Blitz, but didn't translate well to Supercoach because of turnovers and some other things as well. But I think with a double and the way that he's performing, I'm expecting big things. And I had to say goodbye to Derrick Rowan Jr., who was my preseason MVP pick. Emotionally, because that last game cost me nearly every single matchup I had in Supercoach with having him as captain. So they're the ones for me. I'm expecting a massive round for Montrezl Harrell.
A little bit of work to do at the guard spot for me. So I hung on to Dylan Windler, which was a great thing last week. He scored well, double this week for Perth. So I like the look of that. But the move at the other guard spot's the one for me. And then I'll try and get Harrell in. So, you know, Cam Oliver is the sort of the likely fit. I don't necessarily want to move off Cam Oliver immediately. The same with Jalen Adams, who's of course got the double coming up the week after next. So just how that fashions out. Pretty happy with the bench. Antonio's already there. Ben Henschel, I'm happy to stick with. Lockie Olbrich, Will Hickey. So a lot of those guys on the bench, I'm not necessarily trying to make moves there. But how can I get Montrezl Harrell into the team is the main consideration. I reckon in terms of trades this week, it'll be a main consideration for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think one of the other ones we haven't even hit on is Casey Prather. Like, it's like one of those other sort of cash cows. Just keep making money. That's all you need to be doing this week. And when you get those, like especially with the Cairns players, even though they're on a double, like you got to look at the Taron Armstrong like news, whether or not he's playing. That'll impact Antonio. That'll impact McCoy. So you just have to play it safe, make your cash, bounce out, away you go.
Pulse, captain.
Harrell, for sure.
Trez.
It'd be rude not to. Well done, Trez. You're unanimous of the panel here that you're the captain this week for Supercoach. It's going to be a thrilling week 3 in NBL Supercoach. Of course, the NBL app for all your live scores, supercoach.com.au for everything you need to move. That reverse trades function, get onto that. It is an absolute lifesaver. You can rage trade all you want and then come to your senses by the back end of the week. Pete, trust yourself. James, good luck. Thanks for your company. Look forward to seeing how we go throughout the course of the week. Thanks for your company as well at home. Good luck to all of you out there. Keep tuned to nbl.com.au, the NBL app, and of course supercoach.com.au for all the latest.